The incident sparking protests and looting overnight, leading to nearly 100 arrests.
This don't make no sense. You know, if you want to go out there and demonstrate. But when you tear it up your neighborhood, that's not cool. You know what I'm saying?
Dozens of officers were hurt.
Multiple officers down. These officers down.
Another officer is hospitalized after being struck by a pickup truck.
We anticipate the chance of additional incidents of civil unrest. And as such, we will be taking additional steps to ensure order.
Philadelphia bracing for the potential of more violence as the investigation into the shooting continues.
All right, so Dr. B, that's the end of that. And while I open up Judge's mic, for looking for it. But anyway, could you please address that and also include the fact that, like I said, mental health, talk about, the fact that he's 27, father of 9. His mother called the ambulance. She didn't call the police. But earlier that day, the police had been summoned to the house. I think they call like 3 different times. And then, people are in the streets, they're looting, and I agree with the guy. They're tearing down their own neighborhoods, and I don't know if this is for him or for them, because I don't know if people kind of approach this as a second stimulus or something, and maybe protest our people's reparations. I don't know, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. Don't want to script it too much, but if you can take it from here and just give us your take on that, I'm going to go on and open up Judge's too. Going to fall back and allow the two of you to engage.
Okay, well, let me say this. First of all, that shooting, it does break your heart. I have relatives. I have a relative in particular I'm thinking about who died in the same way, where he had some mental health problems. His mama called the police, and the police ended up shooting the son. And so. I think that you start this whole conversation about Walter Wallace, in my opinion, by acknowledging the fact that it didn't have to go that way, that there's better ways to control a situation than to do what they did. And this whole idea, of using deadly force, no matter what, is just not appropriate. We have to address that. Now, in terms of what this is, the death of one person is symbolic, and it can be a rallying point for something bigger, right? But the thing about it is that when you talk about how we're kind of protesting a lot of these issues, it's one of those things where we will get really deeply caught up in one person's story. But remember, when you're getting caught in one person's story, you're forgetting about 100,000 other stories in the criminal justice system. The bigger predator in our society is, all the Joe Biden, Bill Clinton concentration camps they built that are housing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Black people who are being beaten every day, raped on a regular basis, starved half to death, and severely mistreated and infected with mental illness, disease, and everything else right now in American prisons right now. So my question becomes, as you protest this shooting of Walter Wallace, which is one guy who certainly didn't have to die, shouldn't have died. What are you really most angry about? Let's figure out what you're really angry about so we can really solve this thing, as opposed to simply creating a repetitive cycle where we just wait for the next Black person to get shot so we can spend an entire month obsessing over that one person's story, that one person's case. So what I see when I see people in the hood that are looting or destroying things or protesting, I totally get that. There's a lot to protest. How about we start with some systematic things, starting with number one, the fact that there's no commitment to mental health treatment in this country anymore. A lot of the people that used to get mental health support are now being put in jail. The cops are not therapists. It's not fair. It's not even right to put a cop in a situation where he's got to resolve a mental health crisis, especially with somebody who has a weapon. Right? Why is there not a better process to deal with that? Why did they not have tasers that they could have used to, subdue the subject without having to kill him? Right? Or maybe you also talk about the fact that many of these neighborhoods where these protests are happening are depleted, destroyed neighborhoods. So why not throw in a reparations conversation or a conversation about broader criminal justice reform, because that's what the issue is. The issue is not just Walter Wallace. Walter Wallace's death was a symptom of a deeper disease that exists in this country. So you can manage the symptoms, you can put a Band-Aid on the symptoms, or you can go in and do the surgery necessary to fix the disease. I like to solve problems. I don't like to just spend my time complaining about something. I like to figure out what's going on so I can fix it.
Totally agree. Just has some background noise, Dr. B, so I'm still trying to fix that.
Okay.
Play something. Your friends over at the Breakfast Club had some very, very interesting points. So while I check with the judge, go to the back office and see what he's doing. There are a few things that Charlemagne said that definitely hit a home run and supports what it is that you just introduced. So I'm going to check the judge and listen to this because our callers have doubled. So a lot of people are just tuning in anyway. Here we go.
Well, let's start with Walter Wallace Jr., this 27-year-old black man who was killed by Philadelphia police officers in a shooting that was caught on video. He had a knife. He ignored orders to drop the weapon before officers fired shots at him on Monday afternoon. Now, Walter Wallace Jr.'s parents said that officers knew that he was in a mental health crisis. They had actually been to the family's house 3 times on Monday. They said one of the times they just stood there and laughed at us. According to the family's attorney, Shaka Johnson, they said his wife, Dominique Wallace, is pregnant and is scheduled to have labor induced on Wednesday. And she also has 9 children, by the way. And so, according to the attorney, when you come to a scene where somebody's in a mental crisis and the only tool you have to deal with is a gun, where are the proper tools for the job? Now, according to the family, they actually called for an ambulance and not for the police. For some reason, the police did show up.
That's horrible. I mean, listen, this gives a lot of, validation to the whole defund the police conversation where, they want to take, budgets from these police organizations and put them into programs that actually help, empower mental health care workers, because that's what should be showing up to these kind of situations, not police officers.
Now, the White House did issue a statement yesterday. They said the unrest was another consequence of liberal Democrats' war against the police, and the Trump administration stands proudly with law enforcement and stands ready upon request to deploy any and all federal resources to end these riots. And
by the way, this is what I hate about both sides. You hear the Trump administration say that, and then you hear Joe Biden say immediately, but y'all can't be looting, y'all can't burn down buildings. Like, F them buildings. Absolutely. Somebody lost their life again at the hands of the police. Can we talk about that? Can we talk about the fact that people need assistance for their mental health in this country and they're not getting it? Can we talk about the fact that we do need organizations that can reply to these mental health people instead of police officers? Like, come on, bro. Like, what are we talking about here? They always worry about the wrong thing.
Well, Walter Wallace's mom also did say that she doesn't want people looting as well, and that there does have to be justice.
Yeah, but I
doesn't want to see that.
We shouldn't be focusing on that. If you hear more about those buildings burning than they do the actual man that got killed. That's what they go to first.
I'm sure his mom said that because she doesn't want to see anybody else get hurt, anybody else get shot, anybody else go to jail. So I'm sure that's the reason why she said that. But I agree with you, man. We should be caring about these innocent lives and if people are being killed, and less concerned about a building.
You worry about the effect, but not the cause. Let's deal with the cause right now.
All right, so Dr. B, that's it. I do have judge. We're all set up. You want to speak to defunding the police, the White House statement, the fact that the parents have already taken a position. Do you think they're setting themselves up to receive a settlement?
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. Did you want me to address that now, or do you want me to wait for the judge?
Yes. If you...
Okay, then I will wait. I will wait for Your Honor to speak. I will speak when I get permission.
Yeah, and give me some energy that'll help that answer go viral.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Got you. Yeah. Okay. So. Oh, you're ready for my answer. Oh, I thought you wanted me to wait for Judge Joe Brown. I'm sorry. So here's the deal. When you're talking about this whole situation, we know that everybody's right and everybody's wrong, right? And that's how American politics is getting. When you have 2 choices on the menu, you don't have any other options. So those who are outraged about what's going on is 100% correct. That this was handled all the wrong ways. That mental health crises should not be handled by the police. This is a result of previous overfunding of the wrong solution, where you're solving these problems with violence, and you're having these guys who are highly untrained. I've talked to cops. A lot of cops tell me that they can't get people that want to be cops anymore, so they get the bottom of the barrel now, because the idea of being a police officer has become so defamed that nobody wants to do it. Everybody's scared of cops. My dad was a cop for 25 years, so I don't have a fear of cops, but he basically said I would never want to be a cop right now. So there was a time where there was pride in becoming a police officer. Now the pride is gone. So the people that are showing up are not qualified to do this job on any level. They're not trained very well. You're giving them a gun and you're putting them in a situation with somebody that's got a weapon. So bad things are going to happen, right? So this is a breakdown of the whole system that we just saw right in front of us. Now, in terms of the family and their reaction, I think the family has a limited degree of credibility when it comes to speaking on how the community should feel and react to the situation. It goes back to your boy back in the day, Rodney King. When Rodney King got beat and everybody was outraged because they saw it on video, which was one of the first police video beatings, that we had. Somehow somebody convinced Rodney King that he was a black leader. Somebody convinced him that black people were going to listen to him, and wasn't nobody really listening to him, because people were not really rioting for Rodney King or because they liked him and thought he was a great guy. They were rioting because they were sick of the shit. They were tired of the LAPD planting evidence on people, lying on people, beating people up and killing people for no reason. And so that's what they were fighting about. So in this particular situation, people are rioting for issues that have only very little to do with Walter Wallace. Walter Wallace, unfortunately, his death is kind of the catalyst of a frustration that has brewed for a very long time. And I think that, when the Trump administration steps out and they say, we support the police no matter what, well, that clearly is the wrong answer. If you go under the assumption that Trump is a guy that's trying to gain some sort of favor with the black community, or even if you gave him a little bit of wiggle room to say, okay, well, we're open. We saw you take 10,000 pictures with rappers and all these people who used to brag about hanging out with you. Now suddenly things have changed because you're a Republican. Well, so you're trying to convince us that you empathize with black people on some level. Well, maybe you can empathize with the hard feelings that exist between black men and the police. Maybe you can empathize without saying, I unconditionally support every single thing the police are doing, when all of us know that some of the things they're doing are wrong. Is there a way? Is there any room in our political system for people to say, you know what? We need police. We don't necessarily have to defund and get rid of police. Everybody, when they get in trouble, they all call the police. Even people who hate the police, when they're scared, first thing they do is they call the police. So don't tell me you want to get rid of police, because you're the first one to call the police when you have a problem. But what you really want is, you don't want the banishment of police or the complete defunding of police. You want better police. Maybe like Nation of Islam. I've heard when I spoke with Minister Farrakhan at his house, I remember one of the members of the nation said, we should be policing our own communities. Maybe you can fund the FOI to run certain neighborhoods. I think that would be more appropriate, because in order for police to really do their job effectively, it must start with this idea that you acknowledge the people that you're protecting are human beings. And unfortunately, in police culture, which can become very violent, very toxic, very racist culture, out of their fear and out of their racism, will get to the point where they dehumanize a big chunk of the city. So they'll say, we're going to go over across town and go round up some monkeys. Well, right there, you're calling them monkeys, so you're not seeing them as human beings anymore, which makes it easy for you to walk up in their neighborhood and blow the brains out, because you're not killing a human being anymore. You're killing a monkey, right? So I think really, if we're going to solve a problem like this, I think you have to look under the surface and say, we know people are protesting. Why are they protesting? Why are they mad, right? And solve that problem. And then also, I think that there can also be room to say, if you're sitting there and you're talking about how a cop should do his job, I see that a lot. And I think this affects me because, like I said, I know cops. I know some good cops that don't want to kill anybody. Their goal is to get home without dying. They're not out here. They're not hunting Negroes for a living. And so to me, if you're going to talk about how cops should do their job, then maybe we need to be educated on what that really means. A lot of people who've never been cops are quick to tell cops how to do his job. And I'm sensitive to that only because I just know cops, right? But I'm not one to say cops do their job perfectly, or that they're perfectly equipped, or that the laws are designed in a way that even creates the outcomes that we're looking for as a society. The whole situation is all messed up, and we all know that.
Thank you so much for that answer. I appreciate you. Judge, I know you're listening. Judge wanted to talk to you about the election. So, Judge, if you could, I'll just switch gears and catch your answer regarding Walter Wallace on the other side after, Dr. B.
Let me
So,
say something on
Okay.
on Wallace. One time, some 34 or 5 years ago, when I was a criminal defense lawyer, I had to go talk to a witness that was crucial to the defense evidence in a murder case. And when I got there to speak with this woman, she had a deranged boyfriend that she couldn't get rid of. And he thought I was there to try and run game on her. And he charged out of the door with a large knife in his hand. I immediately drew my .45, thumbed the safety off, and I said, one more step and you die. And the only reason that I did not complete the squeeze on the trigger is because the woman's brother ran out, hit him across the back with a baseball bat, and knocked him to the ground. Now, Kevlar vests that police wear are not knife-proof. They work against high-velocity projectiles, but knives will go through quite easily enough. And I imagine that the average cop confronted with the same kind of situation is going to say, wow, we whooped you. I want to get home to my wife and children this evening and relax and have a beer. Hell with this. Now, that said, you touched on something that I think is important about the bigger picture behind the mentally ill. And I will suggest perhaps, and what's your opinion on this? If you want to blame something, blame the administration of St. Ronald Reagan for destroying the mental health network 40-some years ago after he did so in California. What do you think about that?
I think you're 100% correct.
Dr. B.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm sorry, I didn't know if you wasn't aware if you knew he was talking to you.
No, I agree.
Try to take some calls in about 20 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me, Valerie?
I hear you.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'll tell you what. I'm the woman I'm marrying is a social worker, and one thing I know is that cops are not social workers, and social workers are not cops. And so when you have situations that require, the delicacy of a mental health professional, that is typically not in the skill set of most police officers. My daddy was like a lot like Judge Brown. He's the guy that will pull out the 45 and then he pray for you after he blew your brains out if you mess with his family or whatever the case may be. And I don't think it's fair to expect the police to be able to navigate that. I mean, it puts everybody in danger. So when I look at that whole situation, I just see a breakdown in the whole system, as opposed to, some cops that got up in the morning and said, let's go kill a black man today. I think that's an oversimplification of it. And I think that we do ourselves a favor by really breaking it down so that when they say, okay, why are you mad? What do you want? We can tell them exactly what we want. Maybe you still punish the cops. Maybe there's a punishment in line. I'm not a legal professional, but I can say that I wouldn't want to be in a situation where I had to make a decision like that. I'll tell you, I knew a cop who actually crossed the blue line. He actually became the guy that started challenging some of the tactics that police use, because we know some of the tactics are very, very bad. And he said that the time he had to leave the force was because he was a Hispanic man. He said, one day I was driving to be the best man in a wedding, and I saw a man who was beating up his girlfriend, and he was Latina, and the other guy was Latino, and he got out the car to go help this lady that's being beaten up by her boyfriend. He said suddenly I was surrounded by a bunch of Latino gang members. And he said they were going to kill me. And so I pulled out my gun and he said, I said, back up. And he said in his mind, he was thinking, well, I don't want to be known as the Latino man who kills a bunch of other people from my own community. So he's kind of freezing and not knowing what to do. Well, before he gets a chance to do anything, one of his Latino brothers runs him over with the car. And so he's laid down on the ground and they left him for dead. And he said that after that happened, he had all these surgeries and he was out for a long time, had brain damage, everything. He said, I couldn't be a cop anymore because he said, I was so angry that, because he said, if I had responded and defended myself, people will be yelling at me saying, oh, you killed another brown person. And they don't even know what it's like to be in the trenches with people, some of whom might want to kill you. So I just think that there has to be some room to have that conversation instead of trying to act like we all know exactly what it's like to be in a situation where your life is threatened. I think most people don't know what that's like.
Perhaps what you're talking about, sir, is picking the wrong horse to put your money on when you have a grievance is not a good thing. In other words, somebody's crazy in their arm and they get gunned down. That's a whole different circumstances, and you look a little weird when you protest somebody doing exactly what you would have done if the circumstances had changed around. What do you think about that?
I think that's an excellent point because we don't take the time anymore to get the facts before we start deciding that we're going to be outraged about something. Now, I'm not saying that about the Walter Wallace situation. I read some information from different media sources, and I think that a lot of us have information that's somewhat accurate, that this was inappropriate, that there's something that needs to be done. But I think that this idea of jumping out and protesting every time a black person is killed, in a certain situation, I just don't think that makes any sense. You're going to make yourself look silly eventually because we know some people are just not good people. And some of those people look like us, and so I think instead of letting the white liberals make us all look stupid or causing us to lose focus on the issues that matter, I think that it just makes sense to take the time to get in full information so that you can be clear about how you feel without feeling like you have to fit into a political box, because most things are not black and white. Most things are gray. And if you can't see the gray, that tells me that you're brainwashed.
That's excellent. I like that. Now, that said, you mentioned something else about where you protesting and burning down your own neighborhood. A protest, a hustle, a criminal activity. If you engage in it, you're basically a fool if you jack up your own neighborhood doing it. That's what you're saying in essence, right? Why burn your place down? Why vandalize your place? Why do your criminality where your neighbors live?
Well, they have that saying. Well, Judge, they got that saying, you don't shit where you eat. So I think, if you're going to start tearing down buildings, go across town, to do that. But I'll tell you what, I definitely agree with you. I don't know what that really accomplishes, right? Tearing down black neighborhoods. I have yet to figure out how that's really going to help us solve a problem. But I can also understand that this is a reason why we want to try our best to, not have situations where you've got a lot of people who have nothing to lose. Just because you're doing well and you live in my neighborhood, that doesn't mean I'm doing well. And in some cases, it's because I've chosen not to do. I've made bad choices. But in other situations, I think that it does create some sort of a need to understand the importance of community responsibility if you are doing well. So if you got a business, whether you're black or white, you should be participating in supporting that community and letting the community know that I'm a friend to the community. I'm supporting the local softball team. I'm hiring people from this neighborhood, because I think the most extreme examples are cases where you have black neighborhoods where most of the residents are black, but most of the businesses are owned by people who are not Black. And in addition to the businesses being owned by people who aren't Black, these are people that are giving nothing to the community. They're showing up. They're bringing, I got my little Korean nail shop. I'm hiring other Koreans. I'm taking a bag of money out of the hood and going home. Well, you're building up resentment that you're going to pay a price for later on. But, so there's a difference in that, the Korean nail shop versus, Aunt Mary's barbecue, where Aunt Mary has been a mother to the neighborhood for the last 35 years. And I would believe that people are smart enough to know the difference between the two. But where it does get confusing, though, is a lot of these riots are not being driven by Black people anyway. This is Antifa, the leftists, the anarchists, the communists, the socialists, who basically feel, they want to convince us that all rich people are bad, that all business owners are evil. And those are the individuals, I believe, that are coming in and creating extra chaos by putting gasoline on the fire. I'll be quiet until y'all talk again.
Okay. Well, I was letting you finish. I didn't realize. What do you think about this one? What we see relative to what you just touched on, you look at the people that are actually out there, 150, 200 people that keep going day after day in a city of 1.5 million or something like that. And it strikes me as the eco-protesters, little vanilla cupcakes with a few chocolate sprinkles on top, and they're out there protesting. The Arctic is melting and the polar bears are dying off. You used to be the king of the jungle, now no more. They see mother elephants and their cows, and poor Oscar is out there chained in the kennel and in the winter, and he will not know love unless you send in $19.95 a month ASPCA and the African bipeds being imported for farm work. Well, they've gotten free or escaped, and the boys in blue are hunting them, and we must protect them and send $19.95 a month to BLM. So, it's an eco thing and an excuse for them to go out there and cut up. What do you think about that? That's got any viability?
No, it doesn't interest me personally. I'm not saying
you, but I'm saying in terms of what you see out there being done in these streets, where you got all these white folk out there, and they all look like little spoiled brat nerds, and, over righteous, overwrought, enraged little ugly females with rictuses on their faces as they righteously protest the mistreatment of animals. That, in other words, do you see that too? That's what I look at when I see these things.
Yeah, that I see it.
For them to go out there and go do what they do.
Well, I definitely see a lot of that. I definitely see Black people being used as a pawn. Black trauma, Black suffering is a pawn on the chessboard of this ongoing battle between the left and the right, which goes back a couple hundred years at least, maybe longer than that. I imagine you're a smarter historian than I am, and basically the unfortunate reality of it is what you're seeing two sides of the same white supremacy knife. In either way, somebody else is driving that bus. You ain't driving that bus. Black people are not in control of any of that. We are simply being used to pursue a different objective. It's the same way Black Lives Matter is really an LGBT front organization that's basically leaning on the trauma of Black people to pursue what is ultimately their agenda, right? And here's the thing: it's their right to pursue their agenda. I don't think we should take away anybody's rights, but I think it's very important that we at least know what we're walking into. So before you run around screaming Black Lives Matter, and they got the NBA putting Black Lives Matter on the basketball court and all that stuff, branding this organization, making it synonymous with Blackness, there has to be somebody out here who puts a stop to that. So we have to, those of us who are able to see what's going on. I think our job is to say, no. We do agree with you that Black Lives Matter, but we are not in alignment from a philosophical perspective with Black Lives Matter. and because Black Lives Matter has their agenda, and that ain't always the Black agenda. Like when they say they want to dismantle the nuclear family, well, that's not your agenda for most Black people I know. Your goal is to build your families, right? So, and I think you can do that without necessarily being mad at anyone else or telling them they don't have a right to pursue what they want to pursue. But you have to be firm. You have to be clear. You have to be sturdy in terms of being a rock for what you believe in and saying, maybe sometimes we'll pass in the night and maybe sometimes we'll align on temporary situations. But this idea that I'm allowing you to co-opt me, that I'm allowing you to come in and buy up my Blackness the same way one corporation occupies and it acquires another. We're not doing that. So when a Joe Biden or somebody says, well, if you don't vote for me, then you ain't Black, you got to put the brakes on that right then and say, no, I'm gonna be Black whether I vote for you or not. Right. So when you talk, Judge, about the white liberals and how they operate, as a Black man, I never related to any of their ideologies and their beliefs. I think that when you look at the way a lot of these protests have gone, a lot of this is being triggered by people who ultimately want to see the end of capitalism and patriarchy and all these other things that they have an issue with. And that's fine. But I think Black people have to take a second to say, who are we? What do we believe in? Because if you don't, that old saying when they say if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Well, a lot of our people don't know what they stand for until white people tell them what they stand for. So when white people tell them, oh, well, police killings of Black men, that's the big issue. And then you're like, but what about these killings over here? What about this over there? They're like, no. It's this one thing. This is the one thing we're allowing you to talk about. Well, that's the point where you separate the men from the boys. The little boys are going to go along with it, little wimpy boys who just kind of want to follow along and be accepted by white people. And then the men are going to say, no, we're not. That's not what we're here for. We're going to drive this bus. So I think that in this Walter Wallace shooting, I think that there are some Black people who are just legitimately mad because they know that they're mad. They have experience with the police that has been, problematic. We know the history of the Philadelphia police. We know some of the terrible things that they have done. We know about racism. We know about this corruption. This is all very, very real. That has to be addressed. And then, at the same time, they're going to attract people from outside who aren't so concerned about the health of that community long term. They're only concerned to the extent that they can utilize the death of Walter Wallace to pursue their agenda. And I personally think that people that live in that neighborhood that don't like what they're doing should tell them to get the hell out. If we're gonna have movements in our community, they have to be driven by us. And because if you don't do that, then what happens is you've handed the keys over to somebody else, and they're gonna take you further than you actually want to go. They're going to say, okay, we need to burn down everything, or we need to go now that we've done this. We fought for Walter Wallace. Now we got to go fight for gay people because the gay man is just like a Black man. Well, no, that's not that. No, that's not true. So who are you, Black people? That's what I just ask everybody. And the other thing too, here's what's interesting. I remember seeing a Black cop in Portland who was talking about how the white activists wouldn't even let the Black people talk to him. He said, every time a Black person will come talk to me and I would let them know, just that I understand what they're dealing with and I really am trying to relate to it. He said a white activist would step up and say, you shouldn't be talking to him. He's a pig. He's a pig. And he said it was like clockwork. That's what they would do. That is white supremacy, Judge Brown, because basically you claim to be fighting for liberation. But if white people are still telling you what to do, are you really liberated, or did you just switch over and get a different pimp? And that's the problem. We don't know what freedom even looks like. That's why we can't obtain it. I'll let you all speak whenever you're ready. I can sit in silence. That's okay.
I guess so, because I'm interested in what he's saying. How about this one? From what you're saying, sir, in other words, these white cupcakes are saying Be quiet, Negroes. We've studied what's wrong with you, and we can handle it better than you can.
Yeah, that's another type of white supremacy.
Don't talk to that cop. He's big. No, he's one of us. Shut the hell up. See, we got to stand up to that. Another thing you touched on earlier about those who I find it interesting that all of their talking points seem to be generated by CNN et al. To justify their position. And they're going to the font of white supremacy and LGBTQ to get their perspective on what's going on and then start talking about white supremacy as an excuse to do nothing. Getting back to that, I think we've got a new paradigm going where we don't have two enemies. We don't have one enemy. We've got two, not just white supremacy, but LGBTQIA+/BLM in terms of the organization, who are playing blacks and whites off against each other to create a smoke screen camouflage to conceal their machinations and what they're doing behind the scenes and the destruction of the family, queering up and suppressing cisgender privilege. In other words, straight black men is not an agenda black folk ought to be for. So we need to be aware of these moves that people are putting on us. What do you say to something like that? Is that getting on point, or is that way off base?
No, I think that's right on point. And the thing about it is that I think that we can pursue that point without telling somebody, look, whoever you are is fine. Because you know how it is when you start telling your truth. Of course, the next label is, well, he's a homophobic because he doesn't, because he looked away when a man was walking down the street in his panties or whatever. And I just reject that. And I think that part of that comes down to rejecting white supremacy as an idea where we think that white people are the only ones who are white supremacists, but really black people, when we submit to white supremacy, that's what makes it really effective. Because when we don't submit to it, then it's not really a big issue. When you and I are talking, for example, we don't believe in white supremacy. We don't believe white people are superior to us. We don't believe they have power over us. And therefore, we claim the power. And that's what you do as men. As men, that's masculine leadership. That you don't ask for permission. You just take what you want, and whatever you can't take, then you don't deserve to have it. And so for this situation in terms of the LGBT community really leveraging a lot of the power they actually got from President Obama. I mean, he's the one that really empowered that community to feel that they have the right to not defend themselves anymore, but to become conquerors. Like they got past the point of defending their right to be who they are, because I don't think anybody's challenging that right. They got to the point where they started saying, not only do we have the right to be who we are, but we got the right to change who you are. And we got the right to tell you that you should be telling your 8-year-old child that they can be a boy or a girl, whatever they want to be, or that all this other stuff that they're teaching in school. So that's where you have to fight back, is when people start behaving as conquerors. They're carrying the tactics of the fascists. Like you brought up a great point that I really liked, when you actually said that typically that fascist behavior comes from the right, but actually it's coming from the left. The denial of other people's freedom of speech, labeling people, mislabeling people in a dehumanizing way because they don't agree with their ideology. When you look at, for example, black people who simply speak up and challenge Joe Biden for some of his horrible policies against black people, you have more black people fighting against them than white people in some cases. When Ice Cube was doing what he was doing, it wasn't Joe Biden who was challenging Ice Cube. He wasn't fighting his own battle. It was black people that were fighting a battle on his behalf. So really, I see it as something that has to be addressed and dealt with, because I don't think people really understand just how deep and insidious it goes. And I'll tell you this, Judge Brown, you said that we had two enemies. You said we had the white supremacists. We also had the LGBT. I'm gonna also say that we also have the white supremacists in blackface. You know, when people like yourself speak up and you tell your truth the way you tell it, you've got some Negroes that are really, really backward in their thinking. Their brains are just almost like their brains just came out of the toilet, and they're literally.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah, sure.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
Have you ever heard of an Irish wolfhound?
No, what is that?
In other words, it's a breed of dog that's been bred to hunt wolves. In other words, you got a dog hunting its own kind for its masters. And that's kind of the picture I always get with these folk that are white and blackface. It's like Jomo Kenyatta said one time back in the early 60s before he met his demise. He said, in order to halt the revolution, the Mau Mau had to kill at least 11,000 white people. Unfortunately, 10,000 of them had black faces. Now,
Judge,
the cat said,
time, can you ask him a question about the election so we can get one or two
okay, I'm going to one comment I might make, just my interjection. BLM is poisonous. What we might do is change the paradigm like they do with this homophobic crap, which, by the way, in my researching is about a 15 to 20-year-old term. And before that, you didn't even find it in anything except the medical dictionary dealing with mental health issues that is fairly recent. The term is heterophobic, which goes back a long way. It's in all dictionaries if you get the unabridged ones until recently, and it stands for the legitimate fear homosexuals had of straight people, wherein they got lynched, castigated, thrown in jail, ostracized, or in other words, at least embarrassed. And with that said, one other little term, perhaps we ought to switch from BLM to BFM. Black folk matter, black families matter, black fathers matter, black females matter, black finance matters. You can keep going down that list, and it gets away from the onus of BLM morphing into black lesbian mania. Or, you can do that. So perhaps
black lesbian
I invite you to do that. And the other thing is you touched on it, and I say it, one of the problems is a lack of manhood. I have seen black males so badly sissified over the last 50 years that it is pathetic. We even think in terms of emasculation when we express our resentment to the damn thing. And I'm glad you are doing what you're doing, because you are doing a counter. Even the Nazis understood this. Tell a lie long enough, loud enough, often enough, you can get anybody to believe it. But the truth is the absolute implacable enemy of a lie. It does not have to be told that often to offset the lie. The other thing is this point about the left being the oppressing power. You have to understand something. It looks like what the Nazis started doing 100 years ago, exactly like it. And Nazi stands for German National Socialist Workers' Party. And that would pretty much describe the flavor that we have right now. If you take German and you put the American National Socialist Movement, and you add LGBTQ/BLM to the whole thing, then you get the idea. So maybe we need to start engaging in a little bit more propaganda. And the other thing that I do not like is this tendency where you have to be nice to people. Now, they had a president back in the 40s, Harry Truman, and he was known as Give 'em Hell Harry, because back then he was prone to say, you go to hell, you son of a bitch, I'll kick your ass. Literally. I've seen film of him saying that. We need to start ending our feeling that we have to justify being right to these little ratchet cupcakes and these sissified boys and these gone astray girls who can't find a man, and just say, shut the F up, you're wrong, I'm a man, and this is how men think. Don't I get to do something about it, damn it? And if you want to meet me, my address is published in somebody's damn phone book. Come meet me and we'll have a good time working out the frustration and aggression. You know, that's when I had that show, I used to occasionally say, turn the cameras off. You don't like it? Come on up here. And you're going to get an old man whipping your ass, you know. Sometimes you have to go there.
Judge, did you have a gavel and a switch? But anyway, let me stop playing.
I was carried a pistol when I was up there. I had one of the rare permits in California. Got it out of Ventura County, where the sheriff was one of the 3 in the state that was enlightened. By the way,
Judge, real quick,
something I want to say.
we got a little bit.
Okay, I mean, but this is a point of information. Tasers. We had a sheriff in Shelby County. I knew him. He was something wrong with him. And he was fond of getting on camera and having somebody do it or tasering himself, and he was still standing. It doesn't work on everybody. And if the person's determined enough, all you do is piss him off. You don't drop him. So that was just something I think the public needs to understand. The taser is not foolproof, and it doesn't stop a determined person who's physically fit.
Wow.
Anyway, that said,
All right, Judge, did you want to ask him
Yeah.
real quick your question about the election so we can open up the line?
yeah, what do you think about this election? I love this passion, don't you?
Yeah, well, you know what? I do. I think the passion's good. I don't like the division of it all. You know, I kind of wish Black people would know the difference between a fight that's really our fight and a fight that belongs to other people. You know, I feel like, you know, I think a lot of us understand the problems that come into play when you're talking about having two really, you know, inadequate choices. That's a long-held problem in our system. I think also, I've also noticed that none of the candidates, none of the vice presidential candidates have said the word reparations even once in public, almost like they've been ordered to not mention it. I think that on the brighter side, I feel like Black people have won this election already. I feel like Black people won the election because you heard the voice of the Black man in a way that you have not heard that voice in a long time. You know, even if it was done incorrectly, when you saw whether it was, you know, whatever Kanye West did, you know, which I didn't see eye to eye with a lot of stuff he did, but I like to hear Black men letting people know that we are here. When Ice Cube stepped forward and did what he did, I think he did it masterfully. He did his research. He involved a lot of experts. He put together a Black his you know, he and his experts had their Black agenda, and I think he negotiated in a way that opened up a lot of people's minds. And so a lot of people, that the reason I think everyone's screaming and hollering about it is because they're not used to the Black man speaking up. They're not used to the Black man saying that he needs to be heard, that he's here, and that we are not a community that is without men. You know, when they got us locked into this welfare state and this, you know, all this victim mentality and this wussification of Black America, one of the things that they did was they got rid of all the you know, the Black men that are going to stand up. You know, they did their best, whether you talk about the abortion clinics all the way up through the incarceration system. They said, let's find all the Joe Browns and let's exterminate them, just like Hitler did with Jews. Let's find all the Ice Cubes, make sure they don't make it to the age of 3. Let's find all the Boyce Watkinses and make sure that we marginalize them before we have to deal with them. And the way I look at it, Judge Brown, is that men like you, myself, you know, maybe an Ice Cube, let's use those 3 examples. If you look at the trajectory of our lives, we slip through the cracks. There is no way on earth CBS would have made you as powerful as you became if they really knew, you know, what kind of a force you would become. There's no way they would have given you that power. There's no way they would have let me get my PhD and do the things that I did. There's no way they would have, you know, let Ice Cube slip through the cracks and make, you know, $500 million making movies or whatever. So I personally think that are, you know, that we're doing what we're supposed to do, which is we're participating in the liberation process of the Black male, which will be critical to the liberation process of the Black community. Because as the Black man stands up, the whole world will take notice. The world will bow at our feet because we are the most powerful, most capable, most determined men on the planet. And I'm talking about specifically Native Black men, because our ancestors survived things nobody else could survive. You know, we are the ones who survived the slave dungeons. We survived the Middle Passage. We survived slavery. We survived the brutality of Jim Crow. And we're standing here. And so we are definitely the greatest threat to national security, I think, in the history of this country. And then additionally, I think that as we stand up and as we have the confidence to fully realize our potential and manifest that to the world, the Black woman will also sit in awe of that. Even the Black women who've gotten mad at Black men, given up on Black men, become angry feminists, they will acknowledge and notice that power. I notice that women respond to men who know who they are and know what they want and know what they're going to do. And so to me, the key to the rise of the Black family, to the rise of the Black community, we are the alpha and the omega of all of that. So in this election, I am extremely proud of our community because the Black man has really just thrown a monkey wrench in the whole goddamn machine. And we ain't stopping. This is just the beginning. So I'm really, really proud of what we accomplished here, no matter who wins.
By the way, you put on something about what women seem to be attracted to. For white, blacks, brown, red, yellow males, the boys 25 and under are getting laid less than the girls, and there are more boy virgins 25 under in America than there are female virgins 25 and under. There are more boys staying at home with a parent 30 years of age than there are females. It's just like that man up thing is lacking. And that basically is what we've got with this election. It's unstated, it's in the background, I think. Is man up, stand up, or punk out and get out. And it's going one way or the other. So I think I find it interesting that this passion is being generated over an issue which is, to put it more succinctly, do you reserve the girls' room for the girls, or are you going to let somebody besides girls piss in the girls' room? You see, that's and all these black folks that I keep telling them, we don't need a party. We need to be independent, and we need to sell our votes dearly. But we don't get it because we're just like those wolfhounds that fight in the kennel with other dogs, but the wolves that they are trying to hunt for their white masters are their masters. The wolves cooperate in their endeavors, and the dogs go after the canines that do cooperate because their masters have sicked them off. And that's kind of what I get with all of these ratchet little, what do the kids call them, boule Negroes or something like that?
Uh-huh.
I like that. Man, you boule Negro, man. Man, what's the matter with you? You sitting into that CNN teeth, that weak teeth, and they got a lemon, they squeeze this booty off in there, they take that other one, what's the name, Cooper Anderson, and they squeeze his sugar ass off in there. They got a weak lemon flavored over sugar tea, and that's what you drink? Oh, man. Bring the cooler, dude.
Okay, another Judge, hold for 1 second. So it's 5:10. I'm going to do a time check. Dr. P, it would be an injustice. I know I have all your private numbers, but Mo Duncan, somehow or another, he slapped the S on his chest and got your attention. So I am so blessed. Can we give him an opportunity to say hi and maybe take 1 or 2 calls? Can you tell me if you got time for that?
Yeah. I think I can stretch this out about 10 more minutes. So yeah, I love the judge so much. I love y'all too as well. So Yeah, let's do it. 10, I got 10 more minutes. Then I think I'm gonna get in trouble after that. But yeah, let's go for it.
All right. Okay. All right. Judge, is it okay? We good? We good? You said everything?
We're good.
All right.
Yeah, mama.
Okay,
Good.
so
Boy, on this end, yo, you know, it's like that.
Hotmess.com today. Hotmess.com. All right.
I did go to South Carolina. You know, I got out of it, but it ain't all out of me. I tried to limit it to the good stuff and the attitude.
Keep it fresh. Keep it young. Don't let it go. Keep it fresh. Keep it young. Don't let it go. Keep it fresh. Keep it young.
Well, you know,
Definitely.
Wait.
You
can't wipe it all out of an old dog, you know, but I don't like to use that term dog anymore. You know, we old folk, we get set in our ways, but you know what bothers me about these young folks? They are so damn happy. They don't have any eyes. They are not aggressive. They are not radical. I mean, we tried to scare the hell out of our parents and grandparents 50 years ago. These folks make my age. What is wrong with them? Don't they have any fire? You know, don't they have heart? What is the matter? They act like a bunch of little girls. Damn.
Well,
oh, hey, man. I told this joke, but it's so easy.
Okay, Judge, after the joke, can we take photos of it? Okay.
Yeah, we can take that, but it's a quick joke for the doctor's benefit. A friend of mine is retired principal, and she was taking over for a sick principal, so she had me out there talking to these kids. So we're back in the principal's office when there's a commotion out in the office. We look out, and there's a teacher got one sixth grade kid in one hand and another one on the other. One of them looking sheepish, and the other one got snot running out his nose, crying. He's talking about my mama, you know, about my mama. And my friend said, "Why, honey, what did he say about your mama?" He said, "My mama's so ugly and fat. She can't get in a bathtub, leave without room for 2 splash of water. That's why she can't wash it. She smells so funky." So then I admirably kept a straight face, and a few minutes later, the two mothers showed up, and indeed, the boy's mama weighed about 390, going on 400 pounds, and we can smell her from 10 feet away. But the bottom line is, whereas we used to run the dozens for recreation, these folks get bent out of shape, and some of them just talking about they want to kill themselves. What's wrong with them? You know, like, that is just too much sissification. Like, hey, we used to say, you got on pink panties or something? And now, oh my God, he destroyed someone's self-esteem because he's 6 years old and he might want to be a girl. Oh, did you hear that? I mean, Holly, what is this with Holly Berry talking about? She's so proud of her 6-year-old son because he walks in high heels so well compared to 6-year-old girls. What is that? We let Charlize Theron, that sick, perverted witch, turn these 2 African boys into girls. If we let her come to this country and don't lock her ass up for child abuse, I mean, what is the matter here?
Well, you know, it is a different world. I don't understand it, you know, and I think that the thing that ends up messing with me, Judge, is that, you know, I really don't. Where I come from, it just doesn't matter what you want to do when it comes to your sexuality. That's your sexuality, and I think the fact that they say that, you know, you're so brave for doing this, and they almost made it into almost like a fashion statement, like a trend, like a fad. And I'm not a fan of any of that. And I think that when you're talking about just basic values of building family and community and everything else, you can't build a whole community off of that, you know. And I think that it's okay for us to say that there's some stuff out here that is over the top, perverted, unhealthy, and the thing is that nobody should be immune from that kind of criticism. You know, if you're doing something that is perverted, people have a right to say, you know what you're doing over there that does not sit well for those of us who have children. You know, and I think that when you're afraid to say that, then that's when you're giving another community a license to engage in some really debaucherous behavior without any scrutiny. So I don't think we have to submit to any of that. Like you said, just I learned from my dad, and I think a lot of guys a lot of fathers, the fact that they made the black community fatherless, where 72% of our children don't have a father in the house, that right there killed a lot of our potential, because the father really gives you confidence. He gives the girls and the boys confidence. And so, one of the things I learned from watching my father was that confidence you talk about, it really is a choice. You know, for most young people, especially the men, that courage is in you, but you got to make a choice to pull it out. Because if you're not sure about that choice, then there's always going to be an excuse for you to doubt yourself. And I think a lot of young people don't get that message. And that's why I like to share that message as much as I can. So maybe I can help some of the young people realize what they can do.
Here's one for you, just before we go to our call. They got all these drag queens reading to these children in public libraries and schools. How about we do the other thing? Let's have bikini hour where we got some scantily clad girls dressed up in thong bottoms talking to these young boys, so they get the idea that Nookie is attractive. But you can see people squawking and shrieking over that, but they ignore the other side and says, you don't like these drag queens talking to these children. This room is their own damn business, but that's the equivalent of kicking in the door to our living rooms and sitting in there perched up looking like a freak trying to influence our children and grandchildren. You know, your business is your business. Of women, how about if we get a movement where we're discriminated against those who like to do it doggy style, women who like to verse cowgirl? How about them? They get neglected. They have their rights.
Well, I do think that that has to be on the table for sure. Valerie, go ahead. I apologize.
You're good. You're the guest, and Judge, this is the Judge Brown show, so I'm chilling. I just don't want to lose you.
Let's get our guest a chance to respond to a caller here. Who we got on the line?
All right, so our VP is 407-308, and I'm going to open up 504-289. That's Attorney Rashad, because I promised him. I actually, I've been sick. I think 407-308. I'm trying to check to make sure, see if the board is there. Rashad, you're live. I'll start with you while we wait on Maurice.
Okay, good afternoon, Judge, Valerie, and Dr. Boyce. How you doing?
Doing all right, brother. How are you?
I'm doing fine, brother. I'm doing good. I'm enjoying the conversation. I'm glad you were able to come on today, Boyce. I agree with a lot of what you say. I get the notifications all the time on Facebook when you go on, so I'm always checking it out, listening. And I don't know if you ever see my comments, but I'll respond to some stuff you're saying, man. And good stuff to hear from y'all today. But absolutely, what you're saying about the LGBTQ community is 100%. We can't be afraid to defend our children, defend our families, and speak our minds, and especially as it pertains to our freedom of speech and even our freedom of religion, because even in some aspects that is being attacked now. I remember after the Oberfeld decision, the Times Week article, I believe it was Newsweek, the next thing they said is that churches should lose their tax exemption status. So that's something that's coming next. The president of GLAAD, when we talk about images, the president of GLAAD, back in 2015, she actually released a statement, and Judge, you even told me yourself to get the emails that go on Jenny board, but they wanted to increase the representation of LGBTQ characters in television and movies and radio and everything. They wanted like a 1,000% increase, even though in 2015 they were actually overrepresented according to LifeSite News. That's the article that I read on that. Biden has stated that his number one priority is LGBTQ. He even said recently that in the first 100 Equality Act. So already, when you think about this, though, most of the people in the LGBTQ community, I'm not saying that they are of different races, but it's mostly whites. It's less than 3% of the population. They're white. Most of them are white. They have money. They already are privileged, but now they're going to get extra benefits as a minority. They already have, and we keep getting surpassed by those groups. We're getting surpassed by even illegal immigrants because Biden is even talking about giving amnesty to 11 million of them. I mean, this is insane.
Well, you know what? I agree with you that it is insane, and it's one of those things. You know what it makes me think about, man, is I read somewhere yesterday that that with this campaign, $14 billion was raised to run all the candidates, the congressional races, the president, everything else. That's a record. The two presidential candidates raised a combined total of about $6 billion. And when they went and dissected who the Nation of Islam dissected who the top donors were, the top 10 donors who gave about $1 billion combined, something like that, to the super PACs, they found that 70% of them came from the Jewish community, which is only 1.4% of the population, if I'm not mistaken. And what I really saw there was economics at work, and how there are individuals and groups that may lie in the shadows and not have the numerical representation to really rock the vote. They don't have 40 million people the way Black people do, but they use their dollars in replace of actual votes, and they provide these dollars to allow politicians to then go manipulate Black people into voting against our own interests and voting for their cause instead of our own. And so it's hard for Black people to play the economic game with the white man because we don't have the white man's money. But we do have a certain type of power, voting power, that they work extremely hard to obtain. You know, the votes are very valuable, and but they don't have value to you. Their goal is to get you to vote in a way that supports what they're doing and to pressure each other into doing that. And so what I just really see is that I think that as Black people, again, you have to figure out who the hell are you? Who are you? Right. So if you are, if you are a person who does not connect to the LGBT values and the way they're pursuing the agenda, not you ain't got to be homophobic, you ain't got to hate gay people. You just may say, look, some of that stuff don't make me comfortable. That's your right. You know, I'm a Christian. I believe what the Bible says. Or if you don't connect with abortion, like I personally realize I don't like abortion. I'm not going to tell you not to get an abortion, but that don't make me feel good. I don't want to talk about abortion all day. Or if you don't connect with open borders, where they believe every illegal immigrant we just act like it never happened. If you don't connect to those values, then maybe you don't need to be a Democrat anymore. Maybe you don't want to be a Republican. I'm not telling people to become Republicans. I'm not going to become one per se, but I will say that I'm not going to be a Democrat because I'm not going to sit here and vote for a bunch of stuff that is directly against my interests as a Black man. I mean, and we haven't even talked about how many Black men Joe Biden killed and locked up with his prisons and his concentration camps. And also, we have not talked about the way that Joe Biden, during the Obama presidency, began a big chunk of the Me Too movement. A lot of the Me Too movement started with Joe Biden going just in lockstep with the feminists. And what happens is the first people they start locking up, for unproven rape allegations were Black men. All the white woman had to say was, "Oh, he raped me." No proof, no evidence, no nothing. The judge is better at breaking it down. But like, if you look at the Bill Cosby case, was a symbol of what's happened to a lot of Black men across the country, where a white woman said he touched my boob, and they trying to put this Black man in jail for 10 years and they ain't got no evidence. Right. I couldn't believe it. So Judge, Judge, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I've talked with Judge about it before, and I've even discussed that, that whole case. I actually, boys, if you go to my YouTube channel, Jibu2786, I actually interviewed both Scott Ross and Tom Mesereau, respectively. Tom was the attorney in Bill's case, and Scott was the private investigator. And both of them said that was the most unfair trial that they had ever been a part of, especially Tom. Tom actually tries cases in the Deep South, and he says, those are capital murder cases he tried, and he says those judges and jurors were actually more fair and impartial than this judge was, and that prosecutor. The prosecutor ran a Willie Horton campaign on, if you get me in office, I'll get Bill Cosby. They allowed outbursts from witnesses in front of the jury. You had a juror who allegedly said, "We can all go home, he's guilty." He didn't deny saying it when asked by the court, but the court let him stay on. So that was a complete bull job of a case. It was basically a kangaroo court and should not have been allowed. And his case should be overturned. And I was just disappointed. Of course, the national media, they helped it as well, because if you go on court TV, they're even praising this one lady who happened to work for the judge, William O'Neill, was trying to justify. They asked her opinion about it, but of course she was slanted because she was trying to justify Cosby's the decision again, his guilty verdict. But what you say about Joe Biden, if I can say right quick, with Biden too, about the Me Too movement, it also ended with Joe Biden's voice, because I remember when Kamala Harris in 2019, when she was running against Biden, you remember she was talking about those women that were accusing Biden and said she believed him. She was on record saying she believed him. Now, a whole year later, she's his vice presidential candidate, supporting him, rubbing up on him like daddy. And you got and you got those women who accused her. I remember USA Today, those women that accused Biden, USA Today did a whole article about why they didn't believe one of the main accusers against Joe Biden. They took out a whole article that was back in, I want to say, May of this year, about a man who was a prosecutor broke it down and discredited that woman. Now, would they have done that for Bill Cosby with Andrea Constand when she got concert tickets to his show after the assault, kept going back to his house, having a parent get concert tickets, buying him gifts and presents, things of that nature? Those are the stuff that they don't talk about. And certainly, as it ends with Biden, it started with Joe Biden and it's even ended with Joe Biden, because you notice they're not even talking about Me Too anymore. It's died down because they didn't want Biden to lose this nomination and this presidency. And every time you watch CNN or MSNBC, it's always the first thing they're always going to mention is Donald Trump. Donald Trump is this. Donald Trump is that. So there's poor journalistic integrity in this country.
Yeah, well, journalism's dead.
Dr. Watkins, Mr. Richard is a practicing trial lawyer, so he's an attorney. You should know that. I agree with you, counselor. That trial was an embarrassment and a disgrace. And I'll say this with several contexts. I went to UCLA law. I got out at the top of the class. I've been practicing for a half century, and I know more about criminal law than damn near anybody they've interviewed. Next thing, when it came down to performance in a 10-year period, I had the lowest reversal rate out of 257 trial judges in the state of Tennessee. Now, that was a disgrace. It is an embarrassment. We've got some other things. Doctor, you talked about, and attorney, you talked about the Equality Act. The Equality Act is interesting when you read it because it doesn't say much about gays, but it's got some subtle language in there that pretty much matches what would come back if you had a child molester or a child rapist psychologically evaluated. And basically what it's doing is almost opening the door to legitimating pedophilia as something, entitled protection under all of the laws in the United States. That is like, the whole thing is a sham. Juicy Jesse faked that lynching and he put that rope around his neck, and some of those cops we interviewed, we're talking about, they had Juicy Jesse, that's Jesse Smollett, on Jesse. That's what I video, on video, with one of the Nigerians buying that news at a costume shop during Halloween week. And then
wow.
That fake woman, Camilla Harris, coming in, and fake black woman, Camilla Harris, saying, along with that house Negro, Cory Booker, and they come up and amend this bill that was introduced by Conyers back in 1997. And they restyled it the Anti-Lynch Act, and it got passed. It doesn't mention anything about lynching. It doesn't mention anything about blacks. It doesn't mention hardly anything about gay folk, but it says a hell of a lot toward opening the door for pedophiles so they can molest our children, which will produce recruits to the cause of this group that doesn't reproduce too often. I mean, it's absolutely astonishing. And it's the inconsistencies are horrible. And I will say this too. One of the most dishonest bunch of whores are career prosecutors. They are too deep into exercising too much power for too long with no check and balance to what they do. And at least anybody personally admonishing them for what they do wrong. And Kamala Harris is a whore. She will jump from one thing to the other, one lie to the next to accomplish something with no scruples as to what's going on. And you see that when she is castigating Biden last year, and now all of a sudden he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I mean, it's pathetic that the press has gotten so far off since they don't have this fairness doctrine anymore that the Reagan administration wiped out. That used to be where if you said something bad about one political figure, he had to be given an opportunity either directly or through a spokesman to reply. And now they don't. So it becomes cartoon city where they can use the media, the public airwaves, the public trust. And instead of being treated like public utilities, they get away with, we're a private company, so we're public utilities 150 years ago. But the bottom line is if they have allowed a two-edged sword to start swinging back from the right to left. See, the right wanted to get it so they could offset the left's ability to reply, and now it's coming back to fight. So be careful what you ask for. You just might get it. Now, with that,
All right, Dr. Boyce, I want to check in with you because I just trying to end it as a moot point. So just keep going and give your social media when you're ready to exit stage left.
Yeah, well, you know what? I actually do have to run out of here. I want to say thank you for having me on. It's always great to speak to you, Judge, and as well as you, and you too as well, brother, and Valerie and everybody. Yeah, God bless all of you. All right. Well, have a good evening, everybody.
All right. Well, Dr. B, if you could at this time, go on and tell us what you're promoting. Give us your social media, and I'll let you, Judge, have the final word for you guys to bid each other adieu, and then we're going to shift gears. And if you have anything that you can say quickly about Lil Wayne and the White House, I would love for you to give me that soundbite as well. But if you don't, I understand.
Yeah, sure.
Shout out to Karen and Teresa too.
Yeah, I certainly will. First off, I go live on drboycetv.com, pretty much every day. So people can feel free to follow there, drboycetv.com. But as far as Lil Wayne and meeting with President Trump, I don't have any problem with anybody meeting with any president that's in office. I think that can always be a positive thing. The problem I had with Lil Wayne and what he did with Trump is that it wasn't as if he made it clear who he was representing when he went to meet Trump. The way he spoke of the Platinum Plan and everything else, it sounded like an endorsement. It sounded like a celebrity endorsement. So if you compare Lil Wayne's visit to Trump to, say, Ice Cube spoke to both sides. He didn't just speak to one side. Lil Wayne, I don't think, did that. Also, Ice Cube did not do a photo op with Trump. Whereas Lil Wayne was open for a photo op. And I think that, the other thing is that Ice Cube went and spoke with experts from the Black community about what the Black community needs. I don't know if Lil Wayne did that. I could be wrong. So I'm not one to sit here and condemn anybody for talking to a Republican or a Democrat. I think that if you're going to condemn Lil Wayne for talking to Trump, then you should condemn, Cardi B or Beyonce or whoever for talking to Joe Biden. I think that either way, when you are overcommitting to either the Democratic or the Republican plantation, black people lose. So that's what I think about Lil Wayne. So I'm gonna run on out of here, everybody. But I appreciate y'all having me so much. Thank you for everything.
You're very, very welcome.
Doctor, I always
thank you.
appreciate the chance to hear from you.
Absolutely. Well, God bless you. Have a great weekend.
In the very near future.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
gonna get a drop from you, okay, Dr. B?
Absolutely, no problem. Today, or you mean just later on?
Happy Halloween.
Oh, thank you.
You can go and do something creative right now if you like. That would be nice. So I'll have it in the edit. It's just hard to catch up with you.
Okay, well, I can give the drop now. I will say. Okay. So you want me to say something great about Judge Brown? Because I got 1,000 things I can say.
Yes, say something wonderful, and then give that drop for me about Judge you on the Judge Brown show, and then my shout out produced by Valerie Judge, and then that's it. Whatever you want to say, yeah, give mad love to Judge, so I can spread that everywhere.
Okay, well, I was on the Judge Joe Brown show, directed by Valerie Denise Jones, and I had a great time because Judge Brown is a breath of fresh air. Valerie is an absolute sweetheart, and we need real men in our community. And Judge Joe Brown is part of a rare breed of brilliance and courage, and he is exactly what the community needs. So he's the father figure that I can't say I never had, because I have a father, but he's the father figure that I'm glad to have as a bonus dad, because I have so much respect for him.
Thank you.
And what did they say at the end of the presidential thing? Hi, my name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I approve this message. Can you say that?
Sure. Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I approve this message.
Thank you. You're always a fun. It's just a whole bag of fun. I appreciate you. Please be safe again. Stay away from the white folks during the election. Please do that, because we need you out here. This is a real fight. Appreciate everything that you do. I will see you on Instagram, Text World, and all that other stuff. Again, big shout out to your team. Awesome. I love them to life. So please make sure that you share that with them. And we are here whenever you need us, Dr. B, if you got anything. I know you got your own things going, but if I got guests, I'll talk to you. You want to stop by here and share some news and make us laugh as you inspire us. I think they call that edutainment. Mikasa Sukasa. And I love the chemistry betwixt you and Judge Brown. So thank you. And thank you, Attorney Rashad, for chiming in. And big shout out to So that's it. That could be,
All right.
We're done. We're good. Judge, if you're whatever, we're going to shift gears. But thank you. Be safe.
Same to you. Bye-bye now.
All right, Doc. Thank you.
Okay.
See you later.
All right. See you later.
This is Valerie. Lord.
All right. So there we go. What y'all think? Yeah, I agree. Judge Joe for president. Right on. Yeah, I think I'm tired. I think I'm going to go take a nap. I'm a napper, and I didn't get a chance to take my nap today, so I think I need to go lay down. But by the way, here's don't forget you can text the word Boyce to 31996 if you want to get on the text list. I can shoot you guys a notification when we go live, stuff like that, or when we have stuff going on. And here's something else that you guys can feel free to take a look at. So we have a platform, financialjuneteenth.tv.com. We're actually expanding our Financial Juneteenth brand, and actually pretty soon we might actually be looking for people that can do like a show, like a financial show with commentary, where basically maybe some financial experts, kind of like CNBC does, that are talking about like what happened, what's going on in the markets and things like that. So if you have a background like that, you can actually email support@theblackbusinessschool.com. I'll type in the email address. I'll put it in the chat. It's support@theblackbusinessschool.com. So you can send your resume over if you want to. And because I would actually like to share the platform with more people. Just has to be the right people. You got to have some damn sense, because you'd be amazed how many crazy people reach out. So if you're crazy, don't reach out. But then crazy people never listen now, do they? All right. Y'all take care, everybody. I love you, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye. Peace.